Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube page. We're continuing our Week 13 NFL previews. Up next, the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers come into this game with a record of 7-4. The Vikings at 6-5. This will be a 1 o'clock start over on Fox. Both teams coming off of lopsided losses last week. The Packers were throttled by the Giants up in New York, and the Vikings looked to be a little bit outclassed by the Chicago Bears last week as well. Both teams definitely still in the playoff hunt. Green Bay firmly entrenched in a wild card spot, and they're not out of it for the division yet. They're still chasing Chicago. Chicago, by all means, has not clinched anything as of yet. The Vikings are sort of on life support. This is a very big game for them. If they win this week, they'll be in a flat-footed tie with the Packers for one of those wild cards. So pretty big week for the Vikings this week, and the Packers look to solidify that playoff standing. For the Packers, it's going to be about trying to get a semblance of a running game going, which they haven't been able to do all season. The combination of James Starks and Alex Green has gotten a bulk of the work, both averaging less than 3.5 yards per carry. We'll look for a big game out of Jordy Nelson this week, as he was back from injury last week and had a pretty big game. We do not yet know the status of Greg Jennings. Getting him back into the fold for the Packers will certainly be big as they head into this game versus the Vikings and beyond. To make a significant run in the playoffs, the feeling is they need to get something out of the running game and also be all pistons go heading into the playoffs. That means getting Jordy Nelson back fully healthy, even though he's back. That means making sure Greg Jennings is ready to go. Their defense has been a cause for concern this year. They're averaging a little over 100 yards on the ground per game and about 245 through the air. I think the biggest difference in their defense this season is the fact that they're not as opportunistic as they have been in years past. I think a lot of the statistical problems with the defense in years past were masked a little bit by the fact that they did cause a lot of turnovers, that they did sack the quarterback a decent amount. 34 sacks on the year as a team. Not great numbers, but pretty good. It'd be interesting to see if Clay Matthews comes back from injury this week as well. That defense could definitely use his presence, obviously rushing the passer, with being that their secondary has struggled at times this season. But hey, look, a lot of problems are solved by the fact that the Packers have Aaron Rodgers, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, an off game last week against the Giants, and he usually follows an off game with a stellar game, and we expect that he will do the same this week at home versus the Vikings. As far as the Vikings go, people thought this was going to be a rebuilding year for them. I think they've kind of exceeded expectations, but I think you see the last couple weeks some of those growing pains showing, most notably with the quarterback. Christian Ponder struggled last week against the Bears. You know, the Bears are a good defense, so we weren't surprised that Ponder had some troubles against that defense. But overall, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on the season. This team is, as always, heavily reliant on Adrian Peterson, who we think is pretty much bionic. Given the injury that he came back from as quick as he did, he's averaging 5.8 yards per carry, over 1,200 yards rushing on the season, and he's been an absolute beast again. We'll check the status of Percy Harvin as the week unfolds. He missed last week's game and is questionable for this one. Jared Allen leads the defense once again with 7 sacks. It's be key in this game for him to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers early and often, and hopefully he gets some help in that department for the Vikings' sake if they have a chance. Remember, if the Vikings win this game, they move into a second place divisional tie with the Packers and also get right back in the mix for a wild card berth. So if they can put some subpar performances behind them in the last couple of weeks, they can really make a statement here this week. Some trends to look out for. Green Bay is 12-2 against the spread in their last 14, following a game in which they didn't cover the spread. And also, the Vikings are 4-9-1 in their last 14 games against the spread versus the NFC North. Look, this is a rivalry game, an NFC North black and blue division battle. We think, though, the Packers come into this game extremely fired up with a lot to play for, with the ability to not knock out the Vikings, but to put them in a very tough spot going forward as far as a playoff berth goes. And we like Aaron Rodgers to come out and put the bad performance from last week behind him. The spread in this game is Packers -9, and we expect the Packers to cover the 9 points in this game. So again, we like the Packers over the Vikings in Week 13.